All right. Good evening. I'm Louise Rothman-Reamer with the League of Women Voters, Oakland. And before we get started, I would like everyone to know that we are filming every race, but not every forum, and we are putting everything we have filmed into YouTube with the link to Smart Voter. So do emphasize that when you're thinking about things, that we are actually recording this and people will get a chance to see you and they can replay it as often as they like. I would like to thank you for being with us tonight. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. Before we start, as a matter of courtesy, please turn off your electronic devices and be aware that campaign literature or other forms of campaigning, such as buttons and T-shirts, are not permitted inside the forum room in order to maintain neutrality. I'd like to remind everyone present that the candidates have all agreed to participate under these guidelines, and they are also posted outside of the room. We have 4 candidates who are running for District 6 for the Oakland Unified School District. For District 4, I'm sorry, District 6 is next, District 4. And these 4 candidates are Nina Sin, Cherie Spigner, Salim Shakir Gilmore, and Carl Debrow. So we're going to start with everybody having about a minute and a half to make a statement. And so, Nina, we'll start with you. We'll take Nina, and then Cherie. Oh, I'm sorry, Cherie, you were first. I apologize. Cherie, and then Carl, then Nina, then Salim. I'm sorry, I had them written down, and then I just didn't follow my numbers. So, Cherie, will you start, please?
Yes, I will. So thank you for having us. It's very nice to be here with you this evening. Oh, push a button. Sorry. Thank you for having us this evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Cherie Spigner. I'm running for school board because as a parent of 2 young women growing up in Oakland, I had to traverse many different academic streams. My children participated in public schools, private schools, one was homeschooled, and we also went to charter schools. We did that because I am always on the quest for a quality education, and I wasn't finding quality options with my neighborhood schools. So, unfortunately, I had to opt out of public school options. I had to search charter options, homeschool options, and we ultimately rested in parochial school. My oldest daughter has a learning style difference, and we weren't getting the support that we needed from the district at the time. The district was in state receivership, and we just weren't feeling welcome to get her needs met. So, again, I had to opt to parochial schools in order to make sure that they were met. I'm running for school board because, as a parent, understanding those challenges and the frustrations that parents do face every day with the options that they're making with Oakland Public Schools and or the options that are not available, my goal is to provide quality public schools to our students in Oakland. We serve a very diverse population of people, and we need to make sure that from the beginning, early school to childhood development, all the way to the end, where we make sure that they are educated so that they can go into the 21st century workforce, that we provide quality options. So my name is Cherie Spigner, and that's why I'm running for school board.
Carl.
My name is Carl Debrow, and I'm running for District 4 School Board. My life has been about education. I'm an educator, born of an educator. My mother taught in Oakland schools for 25 years. She retired from Allendale Elementary, which is in District 4. My brother is a teacher at Oakland Tech. He's been in Oakland about 20 years. He won the All-Star Teacher Award from Major League Baseball and got to go to Minneapolis to be part of that. I've been a teacher for 25 years myself. I've taught at Bancroft Middle School and San Leandro High School, and I moved on to community college to teach at Los Medanos College and also to be an administrator. I bring to this race a lot of experience. I have a doctorate in education, but I've also done some things that are really, really critical to Oakland schools right now. Currently, I direct a program at Contra Costa College, which takes dropouts and turns them into college students with high school diplomas. Before that, I worked at San Leandro High School in a program that took students who were average students out of middle school, recruited them into a classroom where we taught them how to do the difficult things of school. We pushed them into hard classes where they succeeded and gained college entrance at a 95% rate. These two issues are really critical to Oakland right now. In the class of 2014, between kindergarten and senior year, they lost 35% of the students. So I'm going to bring these skills to the race. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. And Nina?
Thank you, everybody. I just want to do a shout out for the League of Women Voters, because as a voter myself, I rely heavily on what you all have to say, and I really appreciate the education that you make available to the public. I think it makes a big difference and helps educate everybody on what the issues are. So my name is Nina Sen, and I'm running for school board in District 4 in Oakland. And the question of why am I doing it comes up often. And what I would say is I'm doing it for several reasons. First of all, is that both of my parents were public school educators. My mother was a third grade teacher and a reading specialist in public elementary school, mostly in Whittier. And my father was a minister and an academic, and he taught and created a course at UCLA and taught it until he was in his 80s. And they passed away pretty recently, and I felt like they passed a baton to me to do something significant for our students. And I believe that it's part of my responsibility to do what I can and bring my education and my skills to help every student thrive and be successful from pre-K through high school and beyond. And I'll talk more about how I'm going to do that when I have more time. Thank you.
And then Salim.
Thank you so much. My name is Salim Shakir Gilmore. I'm very excited to be here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to share my platform and my vision for Oakland schools with Oakland voters. One of the things that is not brought up enough, as far as I'm concerned, being a former classroom teacher in OUSD, is that education is actually a public safety strategy. And as we have concerns and we're looking to increase police officers and find more money for our budgets to police ourselves, I really would like us to have a longer-term vision and really look at quality education as a strategy for safe neighborhoods. I'm an Oakland educator. I was born and raised in Oakland. I went to Oakland Public Schools. My parents, as a gang intervention, as I was living in East Oakland and being drawn towards the streets, moved us to Texas. I lived 10 years in Texas, where I went to high school and college, and actually had an opportunity to see a different educational system, and came back really invigorated to work in Oakland schools. I've been a teacher in Oakland schools. I've also partnered with Oakland schools to provide professional development for teachers. I provided the first curriculum for manhood development training for the African American Male Achievement Department. And the issues that I want to run on and tackle once I'm elected include fiscal accountability, making sure that we free ourselves from the trusteeship of the state, that we really make sure we serve the most underserved students, and we're clear that African American and Latino graduation rates are low, but we also know that advanced students in special ed and English language learners need support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question is, and we'll start with the same order, what are the central issues facing the Oakland school system? Cherie, will you start?
Well, that's a very good question. I think they are varied. First, we have a very serious budgeting issue. We're unable to pass audits. Because of that, our credit rating is low. We pay a lot more in bonds. So when you're talking about a state that's already underfunded with regard to its education, then that just compounds the problem, because even monies that are supposed to be allocated to our students and our schools are not allocated. Monies that taxpayers have approved to pay towards school-funded initiatives don't get dispersed because we have issues with budgeting. So as a business person with a background in business, I understand the value of looking at each line item that we are spending money on, assessing its effectiveness and its value, and understanding if it's something that we need to continue to support. There should be nothing that's coveted just based on who's involved in the process. If we look at the line item and it's not effective, then we need to make sure that we put the proper measurables in place so that we can measure its effectiveness. And if it's not effective in serving the children and providing quality options, then it's something that we need to take a look at. I think there's too many initiatives without enough measuring.
Thank you. Carl?
For me, it's always about teaching and learning. And teaching and learning addresses just about any problem that you want to talk about in Oakland. I was speaking earlier about 35% of the students disappearing from Oakland schools between kindergarten and 12th grade in the class of 2014. If you address the dropout problem, if you address the opt-out problem, both issues that I have deep background in, having succeeded in schools, a proven record on, you bring back a lot of the money that we're so worried about. 35%, I imagine, let's say it's fair to say 30% of each class is being sloughed off somewhere to either charter schools, private schools, or moving out of the city because they don't want to go to our schools. If we bring back just 10% of that, that's a whole lot of money that addresses a whole lot of problems, one of which is paying teachers and administrators better. So I think the real issue is teaching and learning.
Thank you. Nina?
Thank you. Some of my colleagues here have already mentioned the accountability and the fiscal challenges. That is top of mind in terms of issues. And the other one that I would mention is that I think that with the very poor level of graduation rates in Oakland, that is something that we need to address urgently, as well as focusing on early childhood development. The ways to address that would be through, first of all, I think we need to make sure that we attract and retain and develop our high-performing teachers, and also give them the professional development they need and support. Second of all, I think that we need to have a classroom environment where they're able to teach and our students are able to learn. And so using practices along the lines of restorative practices or positive behavioral strategies will make a huge difference there. And third, it's critical that we have access to the appropriate educational technology and books and resources through our libraries that's available to every student, so that all of our students have the opportunity to thrive, because at this point we're losing too many children because we don't have enough resources in place for all of them.
Salim?
And is my time limit 1 minute? 90 seconds, okay. Just want to make sure I accounted for the time I have. Thank you for the question. I really do feel that teaching and learning is an important piece. Our teachers need to be paid more, and they definitely need more cutting-edge professional development. I'd like to see training around things like post-traumatic stress and trauma-informed responses for our young people. But the things that really are going to make the biggest difference are not the sexy things. It's really getting clear about our accountability around our finances. It's addressing directly our debt issues. It's getting us a data system that would allow us the ability to actually make some decisions. And then lastly, having an equal way to assess quality in schools. My day job is with juvenile justice reform, and I work across the country with probation departments, district attorneys, public defenders, and other stakeholders in juvenile justice. And the first thing we do is we make sure we're able to access and analyze the data to determine if their practices or their policies or their programming are disproportionately impacting youth of color. And so, very similarly, it's very hard to make decisions whether we are attempting to close schools, whether we are attempting to provide intervention services if we don't have the data. I'm endorsed by 3 of the school board members, including the Vice President James Harris, Jamoke Hinton Hodge, and Roseanne Torres. And those endorsements are important because I will be able to hit the ground running and work collaboratively to deal with these issues.
Thank you. One of the concerns that people have is how do you get parents and the community more informed and involved in the educational process and in order to make these reforms? And so let's start with Carl, and could you tell us how you might engage the community and parents more?
So, as someone who taught for a lot of years and ran program around this kind of issue, one of my responsibilities when I was coordinator of the AVID program was to bring in parents. That was just part of what AVID required. Now, when I first started out, I realized that oftentimes what we do when we try to bring in parents, we have a back-to-school night, we have an open house, and frankly, those are kind of dog and pony shows. I did those a lot of times, and I was required to do those. And I didn't think they were bringing much value to parents, so I understood why parents didn't come. What I ended up doing with AVID, and I think it's a really good idea, is focus on things that parents really want. So one of the things we did to bring parents in was to have a night where we honored their students. We honored students who had a top GPA. We honored students who had improved significantly. We honored students that had shown leadership, and we brought food. And so those are things that you can do. Honoring students is something that parents want. Another thing that we did I thought was really helpful in this area, particularly in the context of high school, is to provide for parents information around how do our kids transition to college, what are financial aid issues that we can look at, can we get help with FAFSA? So we would have a night where we would help parents complete the FAFSA on our school campus at a time that was convenient for them. And that's one of the other pieces that when we're engaging parents, we have to remember they're working, they don't have the time necessarily to come in when we want, when we're in school. We have to be there later. We have to be there on Saturdays as well. Thank you.
Nina?
Thank you. This is actually a very important issue to me because I've been a very active parent in District 4 in Oakland for over 10 years, and particularly in the last 4 years at Montera Middle School. And this is an area that I've really focused on, and I can share with you some of the things that we learned and were able to be successful with. First of all, we are in a district that has a multitude of different languages, and so you need to make sure that you're providing translation to the parent community. Then you need to be able to use a form of communication that's accessible to them. Some people don't have access to technology, so you need to make sure that you're able to reach them by phone or by actually reaching out to them individually where they are. And that means going out into the community sometimes. And then also there's ways of bringing in the families through family events, because some of the parents feel like when they're called to school, it's for some negative reason where their student is in trouble, and we need to turn that around so that the parents feel like there's something that's helpful there, like providing education to the parents. And so that's something that we did at Montera. And so I think with all of those things, there's many more things that we could do as well, but those are some of the things that really were successful in my experience. Thank you.
Okay. Salim?
Thank you for the question. As a classroom teacher, I followed closely the decisions and the movements of the school board, and that was from as early as 1999 to present day. What I've seen over the years is that without a lot of constituency participation and presence, some of our elected officials tend to go along to get along and begin to make decisions that are not only in line with the needs of the students, but also is not even in line with the things they said on the campaign trail. The flip side of that is getting quality school board members who have experience in education and who have experience in providing expertise to teachers requires you to first go through this treacherous path of campaigning. I've already committed that if elected, I will maintain office hours in the community and be open to listening to the constituents and making sure that information informs my decisions. I also have committed to creating a community advisory board that would be made up of constituents in District 4 that would work with me to go through the agendas, to think through the best decisions to make, and then help me to inform my decisions. And while I will not always be in lockstep with every recommendation and advice of constituents, it puts me on an even playing field and makes it clear my position so that my constituents can hold me accountable. And so that is what I'm committed to do, to make sure parents and other community members as well are able to participate in the process.
Cherie.
I believe in full-service community schools, and what that does is that automatically, in some regards, brings parents that are otherwise disengaged into the school system, whether it's that there's preschools on campus, whether it's that there are options to learn different languages, job training, different social services, things like that. So that by default, parents are already engaged and involved in an academic setting. It serves multiple purposes, but again, it does engage parents. So that's how you could make sure that a part of the community would be engaged by providing these types of full-service community centers. There's some community schools, there's some talk about it in our strategic plan, but implementation and execution hasn't been 100%. So I think really looking at that piece of our strategic plan. In addition to that, I too would have office hours, because as I talk to the constituents in my district, parents and my neighbors, they do work and they are working, and so when we need to be available when they're available. We need to meet them where they're at. As a very involved parent throughout my children's whole from K through 12 and even into college sometimes, the beauty was that I had a flexible schedule, but everyone doesn't, so we need to be sensitive to that, as well as create some constituencies between, or some correlations between the PTAs and the board. There's a disconnect there, and we need to be a lot more inclusive and inviting and making sure that everyone's informed on that information. So even if it was a night that the board member participates in the PTA meetings, that's also an option to make sure that people are informed and engaged.
Thank you. We've talked a little bit about parents and the issues that are facing the school board, but now I'd like to ask, what about the kids themselves, and what will you do to raise the incentives and the motivation for students to study, to stay in school, and to choose a skilled trade or a college career, that there are options? And let's start with Nina this time.
Thank you. So one of the, part of my background is as a mediator and a restorative justice advocate and practitioner. I've also been a parent leader on the board at Montero Middle School and president of the board for SEEDS Community Resolution Center, as well as being a business attorney. And all of those different skills and experiences have been able to enable me to be actually very present in the schools and actually provide direct service and listen to the students. And when I'm sitting in circle with our students, what they're sharing with me are feelings like they don't feel respected, they don't feel liked, they don't feel understood, they don't feel heard. And these are all things that we can address by implementing better practices within the classroom and across the school amongst our adults and interactions with our students and between the students. And so if we create that kind of environment, the students are more open to learn. They're going to be in a place where they feel they're safe to be able to receive the information, and the teachers are going to be able to teach. And as far as creating pathways, we should make absolutely sure that all of our students are in a place where they have a choice, where they can they can go into a pathway into the trades, or they can go into a pathway to go into higher levels of education. But they need to be qualified and have that opportunity and that choice. Thank you.
Salim?
Thank you for the question. I'm a former science teacher. I taught in middle and high school in Oakland Unified as well as San Francisco Unified. And in my learning as a teacher, I became most effective when I realized that I wasn't actually teaching science, that I was teaching children. And so as a trainer of teachers, I make sure I highlight that if you're teaching your subject, you may be missing the point. One of the first things that we are required to do as teachers is to make sure that the children understand the importance and relevance of education. If they don't, then their performance will reflect that, their relationships and interactions will reflect that. Some children come to school ready to learn, and they have learned the value and the positives of education in the home. And some students have not reached that point. And so as a school district, as teachers, it is our role to help them see the value so that they can find motivation to learn. One thing I'd like to do to encourage that motivation is identify opportunities for scholarships. I would really like to see the opportunity to incentivize high school students to strive for graduation and high GPAs with the reward of a college scholarship at the end of that road. Or, for example, in my conversations with members of the building trades, an opportunity to go into union-sponsored apprenticeships around career readiness. And so we need to invest in our students, and we need to encourage them to be successful. I know as a young person, I had small successes before I understood what those cumulatively meant and what I could do moving forward. So I'd like to see us incentivize our students and put something in front of them that they can run towards.
Cherie?
Well, I think there's a systemic issue with children not thinking that education is valuable. So I think it gives us an opportunity to work with our local leaders and making sure that they are investing in initiatives around early childhood development. The whole notion that children are walking into school 2 years behind is challenging and troubling. So if a child walks into school 2 years behind, they're already frustrated with the process, and it's something that they may or may not want to be engaged in. So we have to help them understand early. There needs to be excellence equity. We need to raise the bar so that we're not always working towards the lowest common denominator, but we're working towards the highest, and we're helping them strive because they will strive. So if we work on early childhood development, that brings the child in more eager to learn. In addition to that, we have to have more robust sports programs. We have to have more robust arts. Everyone's not going to be STEM, although I'm a very strong STEM advocate because I understand how that prepares you for the 21st century workforce. However, we do need to have different trades and vocations and things like that that keep students engaged so that whatever a child's interests are, they're being encouraged, and there's an option there that's available for them to take advantage of that. So whether that comes in a traditional environment or a charter environment, we need to make sure that, again, we're back to providing those quality options. And then we need to make sure that we have teachers there that want to teach, because teachers inspire children. And if they're not inspired, then there can be negative impacts on the children. So we want to make sure that everyone that wants to be in the classroom is in the classroom and is effective in making sure that we're developing them to be that way.
Thank you. Carl?
So I'm going to push back a little on the premise of the question. I really don't believe incentives are an issue at all. And this goes to all of the experiences that I've had in education, whether that was teaching in an ELD class where I was watching students come in who were trying to learn English, who felt that they were dumb. When it really came down to it, they believed that they weren't smart. When I work in the program that I direct now, I'm in essence a principal, so I have control over the budget, I have control over hiring and firing and things like that, and I watch the students come into the program, and again, they don't believe in their own capacity. Or when I was teaching AVID, and I found that kids didn't believe that they could succeed in honors classes and AP classes. The problem is that school, as it's designed, is a hierarchy. And the teacher and the grades become the arbiter of who's smart and who isn't. And kids buy into that. I saw that with my own kid who came home telling me he was dumb. He'd never heard that. He'd never heard that at home. But he went to school and he learned that because he had learning disabilities and he didn't understand what was happening to him. So again, the answer is teaching and learning. It's about bringing teachers in who understand and truly believe and get the professional development to bring out that capacity. Really what good teachers do is teach kids how smart they are.
Okay. So here's sort of a philosophical question. What is educational equality? And how would you address this issue and the most critical issues of inequality facing Oakland? What do you think they are? So again, what is educational equality and how will you address it? And then what do you see as the most critical issues of inequality facing Oakland Public Schools. And Salim, let's start with you.
Really appreciate that question. I feel like equality is sometimes confused, and as a science and math teacher, we know 2 is equal to 2. But sometimes, if I'm starting from -2, I need 4 to get to 2. So really, we're talking about equity, right? And so when we talk about equity, we look at the state funding, the local funding initiative that's recently come down, and the governor has said that each school will receive a base level of funding, and then based on the performance of that school, the number of underperforming students, and the other issues that are challenging the success in that school, there will be additional funding provided. And I think that's my definition of equity. When you ask the question of where are we most inequitable in Oakland Unified School District, I would say one of the places is our per pupil funding. So we are about just over $3,500. We spend $3,500 less per year on average per student than the national average. That's a major concern. Some of the schools in District 4 have very strong PTAs and very engaged parents who raise anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to supplement that shortcoming. I was the school site council chair at Crocker Highlands, and we infused dollars from that budget to make sure we work to close the achievement gap and things of that nature. But it's really important to make sure we look at equity and try to close that gap. I think it's really clear that another area is around graduation.
All right, Cherie.
Well, this is an interesting question because I believe that there's inequity all over the district. You have parents in the Hills at those schools that feel like they're been abandoned by the district, that all of the attention has been given to those that we perceive as underachieving or underserved. And then you have parents that are underserved who feel like they need more than what the district is giving them. So I'm always back to, if we provide quality education throughout the whole district, and if we provide quality opportunities for each student, then we start closing that equity gap. It does look very different maybe in the Hills than it does in the Flats. We're back to the Flats have full-service community schools so that people are engaging and that multiple needs are being met. But ultimately, our schools in the Hills, those parents are leaving at 3rd, 4th, 5th grade so that they can go into private schools or go to a different district. That's not serving their needs. That's inequity to me. We've got parents that are not going into schools that are educating their children properly. That's not equity to me. So I'm back to, at a base level, making sure that what we're doing with our dollars is providing quality so that we start to raise that bar and so that we start to have, again, that excellence equity, because if we're providing those quality options, then everyone gets access to the same things, and no one, regardless of your zip code, your parents' income, your parents' educational background, no one gets anything more or less than anyone else. And that's ultimately where we need to get to.
Okay, Carl?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Just a second here. I just moved this. What is educational equality, and how will you address this issue, and particularly by looking at the most critical issues of inequality facing Oakland Public Schools?
Okay, thank you. I think that phrase, educational equality, reminds me of the Vergara decision, in which the courts held that because tenure, among other things, was in violation of some kind of educational equality. I prefer to talk about issues like equity that has been raised by some of my opponents here. And in Oakland, there's some really big issues. I just want to focus on one. I've got a short period of time. But I discovered in researching the schools that there are some strong programs at Oakland Tech, like Paideia and Engineering Academy. But to get into those programs, you have to be a pretty strong student, which means if you trace it back into middle school, you find that kids were being segregated out after 6th grade math to go to algebra or not. And once you're on that algebra train, it leads you right into engineering or Paideia. And so those kids are going on and they're going to really great colleges and things like that. But if you walk Through the halls of Oakland Tech in particular, what you see is a lot of African American kids walking around the hallways, and believe me, I've visited multiple times. They are not in those programs. So you have a separate but equal education. To me, that is a symbol of educational inequality that needs to be addressed.
Okay. Nina?
Thank you. The issue of what is educational equality, I think, has already been said by a couple of my colleagues. And so I just want to emphasize, to me, it goes along with the acronym that I use in my campaign literature, which has to do with CARE. So community access to resources and education. And in order to have equality, we need to make sure that all of our students have equal access to quality resources. And right now, that's not the case. And so as a school board member, the kinds of things that I would put into place and share with you in my 60 seconds remaining is that we need to really prioritize, and in particular, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our African American male youth. We have a fabulous program that's being run by Chris Chapman. He's making tremendous strides, and especially in relation to reduction of suspension rates, which went down by 11% last year. And we need to keep doing that, and we need to make that program available in all of the schools. And also there's other areas, such as with our special needs, where we have situations where our students who can access the general education are not getting that access, nor are they getting resources that they need as well. So those are just two examples of priorities that need to have attention. And so I think I've covered as much as I can within the time allowed. Thank you.
Okay. Salim? Do you have anything you want to add? Do you have anything you want to add to this matter of equality?
Oh, I answered first.
I know you
Okay,
did.
okay,
I'm
great. I just wanted to make sure
I'm
I
going to
was-
ask everybody to go
Okay.
back. I think this is a really important question
Got you.
in Oakland, and so I want to go back and give people a chance to add something. Maybe we'll just do it for 45 seconds.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure I was in order. Well, one of the things I would say with my ability to add a little bit of texture to my answer is that to measure equity and to determine if we're there, I think we need the voice of parents, other community members, and the children and the teachers. So this is a process that I think, while it takes a collaborative effort among school board directors, this is really something that I would want to make sure I heard clearly from families, from neighbors, and from other constituents within Oakland, and get an assessment from them, what is equity and when have we reached it?
Okay. Cherie? Do you want to add anything?
Yes. My background is in sales, and the beauty of that is that in order for me to provide really quality solutions, I have to really listen to my customers. And so I, too, would really need to listen to all those that are impacted, whether it's parents, whether it's students, whether it's board members, teachers, and principals, to have them also weigh in on this issue. I think there's times when we think we have all the answers, but if we're not taking into account those that we're trying to impact, the answers may not be the ones that are really going to be impactful and effective. So by listening to everyone's concerns, all of our stakeholders, we make sure that when we're making decisions around educational inequality, because it's a huge issue in Oakland, that we're doing it with forethought, we're doing it with commitment on everybody's part.
Carl?
So to take up the example I used at Oakland Tech, the answer wouldn't be to dismantle those programs. Those are excellent programs. The answer would be to look at the demographics of your school and ask yourself questions about why aren't the programs that are so excellent reflective of the demographics of our school. And then it would also be to trace back what is going on in middle school that means that the kids of color who are not getting into Paideia and Engineering Academy are not getting there. So, for example, at Claremont, they had a program called AVID, excellent program, that was producing African-American male students who were passing algebra before they got to high school. They were eligible to go into a program like Paideia, but they took that out. I think we need to return to programs like that because they have a national record of eliminating the achievement gap.
Okay, Nina?
Yes, given my background in engagement with parents, as a parent in District 4 for over 10 years, as also as a leader in the community across the county related to dispute resolution, I feel like it's critical that we do focus on community engagement, and it's not a token exercise, that there really is true engagement by all the stakeholders, and including parents, teachers, community members, and student representatives. And I also want to emphasize that there's some other things that we can do in terms of supporting our teachers better. And we can do some sharing of best practices, and there's phenomenal people in our district that are so talented. One that I just went to visit the other day at Sequoia, his name is Bob Frazier, and he's magical and brought the whole school together to their feet. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is looking at what's happening at central office. And so the question is, what authority and decision-making is currently at central office that you would move to the school site? Cherie, let's start with you. Yes, thank you, Chris.
We definitely need to look at central office and the responsibilities there. We can definitely move different responsibilities to the school sites because from a cultural perspective, you want to make sure that you have teachers that are at each site that fit into the site's culture. But in addition to that, a lot of our funds go into the central office, and so we need to look at each of those responsibilities there to ensure that they're responsibilities that are necessary in that capacity. When we need to look at allocation of resources, we need to look at, can some of those resources actually go to the school site so that they can help support teachers, students, so that the school sites can be a lot more effective, because the central office is a very large one, and we need to look at each of those job titles and making sure that we are allocating those funds, or allocating those people resources effectively. Class sizes could be smaller, and in that children will be served better. So if those central office resources were reallocated to the school site, then we could have a lot more effective classrooms where then we're getting those quality outcomes that we're looking for.
Carl?
Yeah, I definitely need to study up on this question more, but I'll give you a couple points that I think are important. Once I saw a piece of data that said there were 2 employees at district office. For every 2 employees at district office, there was 1 person at the school site. So I think one of the things that district office needs to do is to shrink itself. It also, and this is not specific, but it's more general, it also needs to relinquish more resources and more autonomy to school sites. I've met with principals and teachers and parents who've told stories repeatedly about initiatives that they have taken at their sites that district offices sort of swooped in and nixed for their own reasons. So I think that's another issue. And another example I think that is important in this area is just how district recruits principals. I have an administrative credential. I considered at one point looking at a principalship in Oakland, and they're advertised as a group. So it's a secondary principalship, a middle school principalship at some Oakland school, a high school principalship at some Oakland school, and that's not a good way to attract top talent. I want to know if I'm going into a school, I want to know the school I'm going into. I don't want to just jump into a pool and be pulled in any direction I want. So I don't know that that's exactly answering your question, but I think that's something district office could do better as well.
Okay, Nina?
I met recently with a number of principals in Oakland, and they shared with me some of their concerns. And one of them that I've heard, not just recently, but over the years, is about having more self-governance so that they are empowered to make decisions rather than deferring to the central office, and also being better informed. So some of the things that will come up, for example, have to do with, that I've heard when I was doing some work with the principals this year, had to do with not having all the information that they could on special children related to special needs, and also issues related to when they have a question that might have sort of a legal component, especially related to hiring and employment practices. And a lot of these things can be made available through some kind of online tool or even in a binder. I think that the district used to have something called the pink binder for principals. And so that would give them a place to go and reference rather than having to contact the central office for information. And also I think that they need some more support so that they can make some decisions on a budgeting perspective, and also, again, on the hiring. Sometimes they feel like they aren't in a place where they can actually take care of the hiring themselves and make decisions about, because they know best what their students and their school needs.
Okay, Salim?
You know, I think this year, this budget year, we were able to meet our state requirement of 55% of our budget being allocated and dedicated to teaching and learning. In past years, we've fallen short of that requirement, and that led to fines of $1 million or more that the district had to pay to the state. And so my concern is that the central office is bloated, that there's redundancy and duplicity in some of the services that are provided, and that the central office is much more about leaning into the schools versus responding to the needs of the schools. And so one of the first things I'd like to do is take a real hard look at the budget and determine where we can trim that budget, which would include reorganizing the organizational chart. I'm happy to say that our new superintendent is already on that and making strides in that way. He is actually looking to move more of the decisions to in the local areas around the schools. Some of the areas that I would like to see more influenced, if not decisions made by the school sites themselves, include professional development. I know as a teacher I was not able to inform the professional development, specifically the professional development that started right before school. Principals and administrators would determine that curriculum, and we basically sat through that. Another one is the culturally specific programming. We have an African American Male Achievement Department, and I would like to see schools have the opportunity to allocate dollars to address very specifically the challenges they see with their students. And those are just a couple of examples.
Okay. We are getting towards the end of our time. I would like now to have people comment on Measure N, which is the parcel tax for Oakland schools. And do you support it? And any comments you would like to make? Carl, do you want to start?
I support Measure M. Actually, as an Oakland voter and homeowner for 29 years, I've supported every parcel tax, every ballot initiative that goes to the schools. I know that there are huge issues around how monies have been spent and allocated. I agree with the issue around district office being too bloated, but it's clear that the schools need more money. We just don't have enough, and we really need to be having money to build up facilities as well as pay teachers and principals. So.
Okay, Nina?
Yes, I support the parcel tax for two primary reasons. One is that there was polling done to verify that the amount was going to be an amount that the voters would agree to. And second, and more importantly, is that the purpose of the parcel tax is to really support the pathways and linked learning, which is really essential to our students in Oakland. And so I want to, the thing though, that just the cautionary piece is to make sure that there is very strong and conscientious due diligence on the oversight of the spending, and that we honor the purpose of the parcel tax, and it's spent the way that the voters I assume it'll pass, the voters agree to.
Okay, Salim?
When I was appointed to the Measure G Oversight Committee and elected chair of that committee, the first thing we learned was that as a district, we were more than 3 years behind in meeting the requirements of the Measure G parcel tax, which included the advisory board that I chair, to provide a report to the district directors, to make sure that the money was spent the way the voters required. So with reservation, I am supporting Measure N. I am happy to see that it will be spread to all schools within the district. I am happy to see that it has a commission that will have a little bit more teeth than the advisory committee that I sit on. And I'm supporting it because I will continue, whether elected or not, to stay engaged in our schools and supporting our children. And if elected, I will bring as many of my constituents with me to do that. And so as long as we have the eyes, the ears, and the voice of parents, students, and teachers, then I think we can hold our district and our directors accountable to make sure that they follow through with the spending that was the way the voters requested.
Cherie?
As a homeowner, yes, I would vote yes on Measure N. However, the challenge is that my children didn't even go to public schools. So when you think of a lot of our residents and our constituents that do support bonds and parcel taxes, but their children don't participate in the programs in which these bonds and parcel taxes are earmarked, that could be challenging. However, we understand that our children are underserved and that the schools are not funded well, and that it's our due diligence and our duty to make sure that we provide this for our children. So I would go back to a lot more fiscal responsibility. We pay more in bonds because of our credit rating. We pay money to the state because of state receivership. We lose money because of truancy. We lose money because we lose families. We're back to, if we're providing quality education, if we're really managing our budget and being accountable, then we hopefully will not have to put so many bond measures and parcel tax on the ballot so that people have to pay for them, because one day someone may say, my kids don't go to school in this district, so I'm no longer going to pay this, and then if they don't pass, then where are we at? So we have to look at this holistically and look at it from a much bigger picture, but the short answer is yes, I would support it.
All right. I'd like to thank all of you for your thoughtful responses to the questions, and to wish all of you good luck. And then just want to make a final plug for the League of Women Voters, and to remind everyone that if you have moved recently, or if you are new to the community, it's going to be really important for you to make sure that you are registered to vote, and that you know your polling place, and you know that you still have an opportunity to be able to vote by mail. So we want people to really be engaged and participate in our elections. It's just so very important. For further information about the forms and the candidates, please visit our League's award-winning website, www.smartvoter.org. There you will find descriptive information and links to other sources, and it's accessible to you from your home, from your home computer, or at the public library. So again, I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. The League and the League members do the work of hands-on work to safeguard democracy. And while we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. If you in the audience or you candidates would like to become more involved with us in making a difference to keep our community safe, vibrant, and strong, join the League. We'd love to have you. I'm membership chair. I'd especially love to have you. You can do that by visiting our website at www.lwvoakland.org. And one last thing, I want to remind you that the deadline to register to vote is October 20th. So thank you very much, and thank you, Chris, for being such a good timekeeper. and thank you again.